Okay, the next group of muscles we're going to look at are the posterior muscles of the hip and thigh region. Okay, so the obvious muscles you see when you look at the back of the hip are the gluteus muscles. So we have the gluteus maximus, we have the gluteus medius, located right here, and then underneath those two muscles you would see a third gluteal muscle called the gluteus minimus. So they're named for bigger to smaller: maximus, medius, and gluteus minimus. Now all these muscles do cross the hip joint posteriorly, at least part of the muscle. You can see there's a little anterior component of the gluteus minimus and medius here, but these are all thigh or hip extensors. They extend the thigh. As well as, you'll notice from their orientation that they do come over the lateral aspect of the head of the femur and also serve as abductors, abductors, moving the legs away, spreading the legs apart. Okay? They're sort of analogous in the upper extremity to the deltoid muscle. The deltoid muscle, if you remember, covering the shoulder, and we said they're mainly abductors. The deltoid was an abductor, while the posterior fibers can extend and the anterior fibers would flex. But because of our bipedal stature, standing on two legs, these muscles rotate towards the back a bit more and become certainly more extensors than anything. Okay, so they are extensors of the thigh as well as abductors: gluteus maximus, medius, and minimus. One other muscle right here that you should know is called the piriformis muscle, piriformis, and this also serves kind of like the rotator cuff with these muscles down here. They don't really need to know, but they come from the sacrum and the pelvis, the lower part of the pelvis here, to help stabilize that ball and socket joint. And just like the supraspinatus in the upper extremity, this muscle, the piriformis, comes above to the top of the trochanter here and would certainly abduct or lift the leg laterally, abduct the thigh. Okay, we have another group of muscles just below here, just a little bit lower down, wrong way, called the hamstring muscles. And they are these three muscles here. We're going to just show them a little bit clearer. Okay, these three muscles are the hamstrings. And if you look at them, I should have actually done it on this side. Let me show them over here. These three muscles, cross the hip joint. They come from the ischium, the ischium, which was that lower part of the pelvis, and they will insert all the way down onto the tibia or the fibula laterally. So they do play a role in the knee joint. We'll come back to that in a little bit, but these muscles cross the hip joint posteriorly, so they are also the primary extensors of the hip, straightening out the hip. So they are as follows. The one that is more laterally is called the biceps femoris here. And then we have these two muscles, one kind of sitting right on top of the other here. The more superficial one is called the semitendinosus, and the one just deep to that is called the semimembranosus. Okay, remember they all come from the ischial tuberosity and insert down onto the tibia or fibula in the lower leg, but because they cross this hip joint back here, they are extensors of the hip. Okay, let's look at the muscles of the posterior hip that are going to work on the hip joint. And we have the gluteus maximus muscles here in the rear, quite large muscles here. And the gluteus maximus we see also emanating laterally, just anterior and lateral to the gluteus maximus is the gluteus medius. That's this whole muscle right here. And if we wanted to, we can remove the gluteus maximus and see this muscle right here coming sort of in a lateral direction over the top of the hip. This is called the piriformis muscle, the piriformis. You cannot see the gluteus minimus. It is underneath the gluteus medius. So the three muscles that we can see here that will extend and also abduct the thigh are the gluteus maximus, which we removed here, the gluteus medius, this big fan-shaped muscle right here, and the piriformis, which is mainly an extensor of the thigh as well as a abductor of the thigh. Okay, to look at those same muscles of the posterior thigh on the leg models, we can see the gluteus maximus here very clearly. Over to the side, we have the gluteus medius, which you see underneath this tendon right here. This is all the gluteus medius. If I remove the gluteus maximus now, we can see more of the gluteus medius, got the hole, moves all the way over to the side, gluteus medius. And we can also see the piriformis muscle right here. To close in on the number, piriformis has number 13, gluteus medius number 12, and the gluteus maximus had number 11. Okay, there you have it. Posterior extensors of the thigh, as well as abductors of the thigh, of the hip. The muscles of the posterior leg, posterior thigh, that are going to flex the knee, as well as play a role in extension of the hip, will be the hamstring muscles. And there are actually three. It looks like two at first. There's one over here on the lateral side, number 31. That is the biceps femoris, biceps femoris. And on the other side, we have what looks like one muscle, but it's actually two. It's one muscle on top of another muscle sticking out from below it here. You can see 1, 2. The one on top, the one superficial, is the semitendinosus, and that sits on top of this muscle underneath, which has the number 29. That is the semimembranosus. Semimembranosus underneath, semitendinosus on top. The three of these, these two, along with the biceps femoris, are the hamstrings. They are going to flex the knee, bend the knee, and they're going to also come up and play a role behind the hip. They're going to extend the hip joint.